Frank Perez, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
I thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
We go back, man. We go back.
Yeah.
Back to the days of SUNY Delhi.
What is it? What are we? 11 years? 11 years back?
Something like that. 2010, was it?
I'm gonna go with yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2010.
Yes, it was. Holy jeez. I feel old.
We're getting there. But depending on who you talk to now. I mean, I guess I just turned 30 this year.
Yeah, I just turned 33.
Oh, so we're in the same ballpark.
I mean, I've been in the ballpark a little while longer than you, my friend. Yeah, welcome to my club.
Well, depending who you talk to, you're either still a baby or you're a dinosaur, oldest thing on the planet. It's really funny.
Listen, when we were in school, I was already called grandpa, so you know that I'll never forget that aspect of it. But yeah, you're right. Depending on who you talk to, because realistically, ideally, we have a whole life to live, right? But
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about those days recently. You know, I knew you were coming up, and I was just thinking about that and how you look at kind of the state of I don't know, colleges, would you say, or like post
secondary school.
Secondary school.
Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah. Post high school education, and what I've said, even like kind of. Well, actually, this is after I got my 4-year degree, because then I went back and got my 4-year degree in music industry. By the way, anyone listening, don't do that. don't do that. Like it was a good time. I had good experiences there. I gained definitely some valuable knowledge as it related to music. Really, I should have been a music major.
Right.
But I chose to do industry because I thought, oh, there's business to it, so I'll learn business stuff. Cool.
Yeah, that.
It wasn't really about that, but. But either way, so even like towards the end of that's when it was being revealed to me that wow, I learned so much more at this trade school. I was so much more employable because of that trade school. Here I am, we're learning all these abstract things, and like I'll never forget, I wrote one of my teachers about how we could make this program more suitable for students, make them more hireable. Right. Because I actually used kind of the model from the trade school.
Right.
You know, we had class time, and then we could actually go do the stuff in the field.
Right. And
I said, why don't we apply that to the music industry thing? We have the equipment and the material to produce CDs, and like we could be like the SUNY Oneana label, so to speak. Like they did have a club for that. But it wasn't like mandatory.
Okay.
So, and I learned about that actually like probably the last year of it.
That's like a lot of schools have radio stations and things like that for people who are getting into that side of stuff. But I think you really only find that at the bigger schools, even like that do local stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, I was like, you have all these guitarists and singers and all these great artists and great talent is here. If you just organize this a little differently, conduct the classes a little differently, you could have someone could go to an employer and be like, all right, so, you graduated, so what? It's like, oh, well, I produced this CD, I, wrote this contract between these guys.
Right.
You could have some substance behind you.
Right. A small little label, right, to help get people started and grow. Why not?
Yeah, and not only, because I worked, kind of hard on that email that I sent to this professor, because I really put some thought into it to make sure everything was right. And just the response was just so disheartening. It was just like, no, our programmer is basically perfect, doing everything right.
We don't need your input.
Our classes have enough value in and of themselves and everything. And I was just like, you didn't, like, how? Like, I want to be like, explain that to me. Like, when I go to apply, like, anytime, because I was looking at jobs, and they all were like, oh no, we want, 3 to 5 years experience doing this. The only hope, so I don't even have that, but even if I was applying, I don't have any experience doing that stuff. I've taken some classes where we kind of sort of talked about it. Right. It's like, how does that put you above?
You don't have the practical, hands-on aspect to it, and that's the stuff that really gets taken for granted too. Like you go to school, you sit in a class for X amount of hours, you look through a textbook, you take a couple tests, but there's not enough hands-on actual application, which sounds to me like what you're speaking to.
Exactly.
It's something that's that's sorely missed, because everything can sound great on paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really find out your true interest in it until you're actually doing it, right? We went to school together for automotive, and we can probably think at 20 people who left our program while we were there.
Yeah, because a small class towards the end.
Yeah, we had a fairly small class, and for a plethora of reasons, really, but part of which they couldn't hack it. It wasn't as glorious as their minds told them it was.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, practical application is sorely needed, and you're right. That's what trade schools offer that these regular degrees really don't necessarily bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, your humanities, your, I don't know what you would call them, your general studies, just these kind of arts. I'm not still against. Well, I guess I am kind of against them. But what I would like to see is if you're going to do these things, there needs to be some more hands-on stuff. There has to be more real-world experience with these things, and it can't be like, oh, you take classes for 4 years and then go do an internship. No, the internship has to be like a part of the whole, integrated into the program. Like, hey, so for these classes, like an auto lab, for example,
right?
It wasn't like, hey, we're gonna take all these classes and then you're gonna work in the field for like a year. No, we're gonna like bring the field to you.
Right.
That's how it should be. I don't, the idea that you're gonna do this internship and get these credits after the fact, it just seems like a cop out to me, like a way they can,
Well, and then they expect you to apply the stuff that you learned 4 years ago to that internship. You lose some of that just inherently. If you're not practicing what you're learning, you're going to lose it.
Absolutely.
That's just a fact, and it's not just in school. It's really in anything that you do. You have to fine-tune your craft, fine-tune your knowledge, and get that practical application to things. And that's when things start to make sense.
Yeah. And I think that's we have this big push that you have to go to college after high school, and I don't think that's the case. I think there's a way you could organize education at large to make it more user friendly. I mean, not every kid is. I mean, I think the school system that we have now, even like when I was in school, it just seemed like we're going to do this math, science, history, this and that, and those are fine, but I mean, I think that they can do more than that. I think, instead of having some of these higher math classes, let's do like some finance. Let's do some like taxes. Let's actually like learn some more stuff about American history. You could spend your entire high school, middle school, or like you could be learning about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Right.
You could spend a lifetime studying that stuff, and instead we spend one part of 1 year in like 11th grade to do U.S. history.
Right.
And then people come out and they can't name the first 5 rights in the First Amendment.
They have people have no idea what's going on. But it's going on really in all of our education system. The idea of college is pushed. I personally do agree with you. No, college is not for everybody. Going to a 4-year school, getting a degree, is not for everybody. But this idea of it is pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's increasingly difficult to get a job, for lack of a better way of saying it, a regular job, because of that. Because you have so much competition from people who have no idea really about themselves. Not for nothing, they were just told you have to go get a 4-year degree to be able to do anything. So they go get some random thing with no real interest in it, end up miserable at the end of it with thousands of dollars in debt. It's crazy.
That's the thing. Yeah, you get these degrees, and then you come out with your 4-year degree. You have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and now you're going back to working at the retail store or the ice cream shop or the local supermarket.
Yeah, you're getting a job that's still paying you minimum wage. Realistically, listen, you can go get a job at McDonald's to get minimum wage.
Yeah, you didn't have to go to school to.
No, you didn't. I didn't need to go to school to struggle. I could have struggled on my own things. It's rough. It's very, very different now than, even when we were younger, and I think that makes us sound old. But
yeah,
it's just it's the damn truth.
Yeah, I know growing up that was like the thing. It was like, oh, like you're going to you're going to college, right? Like if you didn't go to college, that was like a thing, and
Right.
so you almost kind of, for me, I applied kind of places kind of by default. I applied to Delhi default, and just I went, I applied all over the place, and looking back at it now, and especially like I said, towards the tail end of my my 4-year degree, I kind of saw the value in like if you're looking at like a debt accumulation to like money making ratio, you could go to like a 2-year school, get like get a degree in plumbing or something, and then go work in New York City or something and make $100K a year.
Yeah.
Like those guys, these tradesmen, especially in the city, are killing it.
Well,
you're gonna work your ass off, but
look, before I went to Delhi, when I got my business management degree, my associate's in business management. And the only reason I even got that was because I had no idea what I wanted to do. Zero. And while I was getting that, I initially struggled through it because I wasn't interested. I was doing it because my parents told me I had to do something, right? I had to get a degree to some extent. What the hell? It's business. It's always valuable, right? But it wasn't there, and then finally ended up at Delhi, and that's when I actually started applying myself because I actually cared about what I was doing and what I was learning. I was actually interested in it.
I felt actually the same exact way. I remember I'd look around and I'd see some guys sleeping in class and stuff, and I'd be like, do you not realize this is really the automotive vehicle is like the peak of human excellence. Like these basic science principles, these basic principles of chemistry, it's insane. The amount of technology that is involved in the vehicle. I mean, that's actually what kind of drew me to automotive because it had electrical, it had HVAC, it had this mechanical engineering aspect to it.
Right.
It had all this science and mechanics to it, and I had never been really exposed to that stuff in that kind of way before.
Right.
And when I finally was, I loved it. I always loved going to class. I always loved going to the labs and working on the stuff and seeing how oh my God, they're not just lying about this crap in the room, you're seeing it in the real world.
And we also, we're scratching the surface of what you actually learn once you even get into the field on top of it. We were learning proper procedure and whatnot, but it was still a controlled environment. And yeah, I look forward to the lab every single day, because we were getting our hands dirty, for lack of a better way of saying it. But even then, once we graduated and started a real world situation and circumstance, then everything just takes off. You know what I mean? It's the training wheels were off.
Yep. And I'll say for the life of a technician is not easy. Holy crap!
Oh, it sucks.
It actually
stinks.
Yeah, it is actually horrible. I would never ever want to do it. I like working on my own stuff, but I don't
see. You're better than me, man. I don't like working on my own stuff. I'm still in this field, and man, listen, it is a thankless field.
Yep.
It is a thankless field. We are constantly berated with problems. But very, very seldom does anyone offer true solutions or praise. It's one of the few jobs where you're constantly having to spend your own money to get the equipment necessary to do the job, yet you are not financially compensated in a manner to allow you to do so.
Yeah, it is weird. You're right. Most businesses, at least now I'm thinking about it, they provide you the stuff that you need. It'd be like you have an office job, and they'd be like, well, you need to buy your own Mac, right? And you'd be like, what? Yeah,
it's pretty much, that is a good, perfect example. It's working in an office, but you're told, hey, you got to go get your own printer ink, your own paper.
Yeah, that giant fax thing, that's as tall as you and I. You gotta buy that. How else are you gonna do the job?
Go get your own paper clips and pens, and you're required, by the way, to have this $1,500 computer. Because that's all we work with, and I need to be able to send you files right away. Okay, cool, thanks. Yeah. It's crazy and thankless, and somehow I'm still in it.
You're working on vehicles now? Or?
I own a shop now.
So that business degree is coming in handy then.
Yeah, it did, but I mean,
but it's like you probably could have figured that out on all the stuff on your own, right? It's like
a lot of what I've learned, I learned in the field. You know, like I said, the college, both on the business side of it and at Delhi, it set a foundation. But the real world it was different. It was different. They, simple things even like whether or not you're gonna wear your safety glasses. Like, yeah, you should, but sometimes you ain't got time for that. You know,
sometimes they get in the way. They fog up, and now you can't see what you're doing.
You can't. You can't see a darn thing, and a lot of simple things that cost time, and in this industry, time is everything. Mm-hmm. Time is absolutely everything. So finding different ways that I had to maneuver to still be able to do the job right. Yeah, I learned on the job. We weren't pushed in school, Yeah, it was about getting it done right. Mm-hmm. But listen, if it took weeks, it took weeks. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the shop that I own, I started at about 9 months after Delhi. I worked there for 4 years. Mm-hmm. I had the opportunity to kick the old owner out, and I did. So,
wow.
It's been 4.5 years now that I've had it, and it doesn't get it easier. It doesn't get easier at all. But
Oh, I didn't know. I remember, unless I'm mixing it up with someone else. I know someone was managing at like a parts store. Was that you?
No. That wasn't me.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd be able to do that. I probably would, actually. I probably enjoy it even more.
Probably a little easier for you.
Yeah. I gotta listen. I do everything soup to nuts. I'm in the shop. I'm ordering parts. I'm dealing with customers. I'm dealing with the bills.
Oh wow! So you're really involved.
Oh,
wow.
in every aspect.
Oh
and
wow!
My first vacation was last year for my honeymoon. In 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. And it kind of wasn't an option. Like my wife would have killed me. So
yeah.
I had to bite the bullet on that one. But yeah, no time off, no vacations, no rest.
It is so funny that you mentioned that, because I didn't realize that you were running your own business, and that to me, and I haven't run my own business. I mean, I'm kind of doing something with this podcast, but mm-hmm. It's still kind of in the early stages. I don't have a ton of responsibility. I'm like I'm trying to seek that out. I'm trying to find people. I'm trying to grow it.
Right.
But obviously there's not a ton of activity at the moment. But in the real world, when you start a business and now you have employees and you have customers and you have responsibilities and you got to get this done and this thing broke, you got to fix that. These bills are coming in and the price increased over here to get this thing, and this part came in late and you got to call it. It
never ends.
It never ends. And one of the podcasts I'm going to be doing, I'll probably record it tomorrow, is there's this Marxist economist named Dr. Richard Wolff.
Okay.
And he has this idea of I don't even know if it's real, like socialism or communism. Sorry, we're going super deep right now. But
it's all right. It's all right. People enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll make it fun. So obviously I'm not really against. I am against that stuff. But he articulates it in a really interesting way, where it's basically, to sum it up, because I know I can sum him up correctly because I listened to him all day today in preparation for this. Basically, he would say that, listen, you have the haves and have-nots, the 1% right. and everybody else. All these guys, they have all the wealth. All these other people who are doing everything have no wealth. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the system by which your employees now are basically the same as you now, the same as the owner.
Okay.
So they can decide and how the business is run, where the profits go, so on and so forth. And I'm just thinking that if, at a base level, if you want to destroy any incentive for someone creating a business or doing that, then that is exactly what you do. Because no one is going to take on all this risk and all this responsibility just to have someone else say, oh no, we're not going to do this. And you'll sit there as the owner and be like, listen, you don't understand. you don't know what is going on here at this level. I not to mention when you hire employees. I'm already getting into stuff I'll talk about tomorrow, but when you hire employees, you're saying, listen, I have this job that I need to do. Hey, do you want to do it? And someone goes yes or no. It's like you're engaging in a contract, a contractual agreement where like you're not coming to be an owner, you're not coming to be like an investor or some kind of.
You're coming to get a certain job done.
Yeah. And it's I don't understand why people like him are so against this idea of two people freely interacting economically together. Whether it's I'm going to trade you my time and labor for this wage, like I don't see how this is a problem.
Well, I mean,
you mind if I crack open that beer?
No, go for it, man. Go for it.
We're diving deep.
I think part of the problem, at least in today's society, man, is the entitlement. That's a very big factor that I think very largely gets overlooked.
Do you want to try some of this, by the way?
No, go ahead.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, man, I'm dehydrated from being in that shop all day. It's like 100 degrees. When it's put simply, when you have a job, you hire somebody to do it, you expect them to get that job done, and then they be compensated for that. That's at its base level, right? What expectations are. The problem is that people will expect to be compensated at a certain level, but then will not work at that same level that the compensation is.
Yeah, so what they want more money than the amount of value they're producing.
Correct.
They want more money beyond what they're producing.
That's
not sustainable.
It's not, but that's our economy though, and that until people kind of take their heads out their ears and realize like you have to give value to get value. Mm-hmm. It's not. It shouldn't be predetermined.
Well, yeah, and like, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, it's just a matter of knowing, going into a situation, giving it your all, doing what's expected, doing it within a time frame that's expected and reasonable, agreed upon. That's the way that the world really should work. With realistic expectations though at that on both sides, in terms of even with compensation, if you shouldn't be expecting to make $30 an hour flipping a burger or folding a shirt. What value are you legitimately getting? Are you legitimately giving to get that compared to somebody like, we'll take the automotive field, someone who is legitimately repairing something, a necessity for most people, that won't see that kind of compensation.
Yeah.
How do you compare?
I mean, and like there's a lot of ways that we can quantify that. Supply and demand, the supply of the labor market, and everything, and that's I look at that and I think and this, another premise that Dr. Wolf has that I just have a big problem with is that he always assumes that the owners of businesses like that you have, he assumes that you guys have all this money hoarded away. He assumes that you're all rich and that you're not struggling, that you have no like real responsibility.
Man,
and it drives me nuts. I know, and like this is coming from me. Like I don't own a business, but I understand how difficult it is. Like he trivializes what it is to run a business, to create a business. He assumes that work. Like for example, he talks about Jeff Bezos a lot, and he's just like, what kind of value is Jeff Bezos adding when all he does is deliver packages? Now, for one thing, he doesn't deliver packages. He subcontracts that out to delivering agencies.
Right.
What he provides is this service where anyone in the world basically can come to this online market. People have one account, they sign in, they don't have to go all these other places to get this up. It's all in one place.
Right.
You can order what you want. They have everything you could ever imagine, and he'll get it there to you in 2 days.
He's not looking at the real value that Jeff Bezos offers is convenience.
Yeah.
He's not just delivering packages. He's giving people the ability to get a product that they want in a one convenient area and managing that domain, which is
that monstrous.
huge.
Yeah, I mean, being in charge, and that's it's just so one thing. We go back again to this idea of mutual economic interactions, freely engage, free individuals freely engaging economically with each other.
Right.
I don't see how that's a problem, but again, so he's got a big problem. He says, "Oh well." He always talks about like, well, somehow we put him there. Like he hoarded all his wealth, and like we put him up there so we can take him back down, and like we can take control and stuff. And I'm like, well, you do realize we did kind of give him like the money, like we freely engage and use his product and his service. And he said, listen, if you're gonna use my thing, I'm gonna get $1 or whatever it is from each thing sold. And we were like, yeah, we're fine with that. Here, take it. Take $100 of our dollars because we
pretty much this. I'm all over that.
Yeah, and I don't see the problem with it. I don't hate people that have money, but the truth of the matter is, most business owners, he just, from a standpoint of economics, he's so concerned with profits and how they get distributed and this and that and how they're used. He forgets there's this whole thing called losses, which is the real reality, I think, for most businesses. There are more dead businesses than there are alive businesses. There are more businesses that tried to become something, and then they, maybe they got big, and then they went under. I mean, history's full of examples.
There was a little deli by my shop that was open for a year and a half that had to close down because their rent went up 3 times. The person who was the initial lessor of the building that they were in, he subleased it to them and ended up raising their rent 2 or 3 times because it was raised on him, and they ended up having to close their deli just as they were getting started really and getting rolling and getting their name out. People were starting to become regulars. They had to close because of that big loss.
They didn't. The guy didn't have these hordes of money and cash and wealth stored away somewhere.
And people don't understand the difference between a major corporation and a small business. They're very different entities with very different struggles. You have these massive corporations that, yes, they do make a lot of money. They do, cater to their shareholders. They also have their massive losses. They do have their tax breaks. Sure, that was built though, and people get mad over it. But like you said, you contributed to that.
Yeah, the money just doesn't. It's not forced out of my pocket.
Right.
It's not like taxes where they're coming to me at gunpoint.
No, you. The same way, if you go to Walmart and you choose to buy a product, you chose to go to Amazon to buy a product. You didn't have to. It was convenient for you. You shouldn't turn around and complain that so and so has so much money. Then all right, well, don't frequent that. That's your choice.
And that's the interesting part about it, is that you can judge people by their words and they're like, oh, we all hate Walmart, and yet clearly people are shopping there. They're 100%. They're so profitable. They're so bad to their employees. People are dying to work there. I mean, when they open up new Walmarts in areas, like, they get more applications than they know what to do with.
Right.
And it's just, something doesn't add up. Like, the narrative doesn't meet the facts in the field.
Right. But the problem is, though, people see, all the money that these big corporations are making, and then we'll turn around to a small business like myself and, like you said, think that we're rolling in the dough. That we have this lavish lifestyle, and it's just not true. I put my head down and I go to work. I'm at my shop every day from 7:30 in the morning to the earliest I leave is 6 o'clock. So I'm spending 10 plus hours every day.
7:30 to 7. I mean, you're almost 12, right?
Right. So, and then I'm there Saturdays also. I'm there from 8 o'clock. Well, 7:30 to 2 o'clock on Saturdays. So I'm putting in a solid 60 plus hour work week.
Yeah.
Just to be able to survive, pay the bills, maybe be able to take my wife out. not living the life of luxury. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm fortunate. I have my family helps me tremendously, but whether it's my sister-in-law, my parents, even my mother-in-law, like I've got an amazing support network that even makes that possible. But people like to assume, right? You own a business, so you must make money.
Yep.
That's just the way it works, and you're dead wrong.
And what's also interesting is that we talk about these big corporations and oh god they must have the life, they have the house, they have the car, I look at that and I go, I would never want to be a CEO. You know why? Because with all that comes enormous responsibility. And if they make one little error, I mean, if one little news story comes out about them, or they make one bad decision, God forbid, and their company, you're dead, dude. All that stuff is gone.
Shareholders and all that. When you got all them people to answer to and all those people to make money for.
Yeah, the people don't realize that, like, the people who are at the top. Cool, yeah, I guess they're at the top, but you don't realize until you're there that there's an enormous amount of responsibility that goes into that. And that, not only that, but it's just very few of us, I think, would even want to be there if we could, I mean, it's a different kind of lifestyle.
It kind of speaks to a lot of what you were talking about earlier with school. You don't really know something until you actually put it into practice.
Some people might love it. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So, for some, being an entrepreneur, for example, sounds fantastic. Being your own boss, they have this illusion of making a ton of money, and they don't really understand everything that will be involved in it. Right. You embark on this grand journey. And all of a sudden, you realize that you need a product that is going to cost you X amount of dollars. You need to come up with that money. Oh no, you need permits for X, Y, and Z, or a license to be able to sell. You have to pay the taxes on this and taxes on that. You have to pay this vendor, that vendor, and all of a sudden, what seems so glamorous is not anymore, right? So you end up. Now you're at a crossroads. Now you're at a crossroads, and what do? You either truck through, or you cut bait and back out.
Which I think it's pretty evident that look how many people run businesses the genius of, I think, his strategy, going back to Dr. Wolf now, is that his strategy, I think, is kind of politically genius, because he knows that there's always more employees than there are employers. Just like, there's always more people. There's more consumers than producers.
Right.
Because even producers are consumers, and not every consumer is a producer.
Right.
And it just seems so kind of shallow to me that you could appeal to just, like, even if you get a portion of them, you're still going to have more people believing in whatever your dogma is to just say, listen, the guy who's employing you is horrible and terrible. He's hoarding money from you. He could pay you more money, but doesn't want to because he likes his higher profits. He likes to spend those profits on things that he wants to do. And to me, it's just like, you just don't understand what it's like to be an employer. You're creating this caricature of what the employer is, and it's just completely wrong.
But listen, even if that was the case, you don't go into business for any other reason than to make money.
It's that simple.
It's really that simple. And if you don't go into business, you go work for somebody, you still have the same goal. You want to make money.
Yeah.
But everything is going to have a correlation. The more risk that you're taking, the more money you're going to make. And at the end of the day, the business owner is taking the most risk out of anybody, out of any employee. It does not matter. The CEO is taking the most risk in most businesses. The biggest shareholder taking the most risk. That's why he gets to call the shots. Yeah. Because at the end of the day,
it's his money.
It's his money. So you want to be able to call the shots, or you want to make more, then take your steps.
It's so funny because Dr. Wolf says exactly the opposite. He goes, no, the employer actually has less risk than the employee. I can't remember his reasoning at the top of my head now, so I don't want to call it. But I'll play it tomorrow when I record it. but like it's just a diametrically different point of view. I mean,
Right.
it's something. It's all about the employee, how they're the greatest thing ever and they can do no wrong. The employer is just this genuinely evil, terrible entity that needs to just step down and let the employees be at the same level. And I'm just like, you have to realize that I mean, like I said earlier, there would be no better way to destroy entrepreneurship, private industry, any sort of business. That would be the way to do it. Just make that legal. If you just said, like, you passed a law that said all employees are basically co-owners now, you would destroy business just like that overnight.
Yeah, I would want zero part of it. I appreciate my employees 100%. You know what I mean? But they're not going home with the fears that I am. You know,
Exactly.
they're just not.
And it's he mentions he said earlier that he says that the employer has less risk than the employee, and I'm thinking to myself, there are some businesses that operate at losses for years, and so the guy who owns that business is maybe just scraping by, maybe like he's just got enough to pay his bills, but there's no profits to speak of.
Right.
They're only losses at this point.
Right.
Meanwhile, anyone who works for him, they've made money the last 2 years. They would never even know. Their paycheck is always there.
And that's a big difference between an employer and an employee.
Your paycheck isn't guaranteed.
That's There have been times that I didn't pay myself for a week or two, just because you know what. First of all, my employees they were entitled. They worked, so they're entitled to their pay.
Yeah, it's a part of the operation costs.
Exactly, and this is my journey. This is my sacrifice. So I've got to keep it afloat. Therefore, I have to sacrifice whatever I was supposed to be taking home to keep that business afloat. People don't see that stuff on the back end. So
because most people aren't employers. That's the thing. The vast majority of us are not employers.
It's that give me attitude though too. Like I go back to entitlement. You always want more. People always want more. Or what are you giving to get more then?
Yeah.
That would be my question.
I agree. I mean, I think you got to take stock of. Just be grateful. I mean, go negotiate. Like if you think you're worth more, go talk to them. Don't hold up resentments and whatnot.
Right.
And I think this might be the Ben Shapiro stance. I'm not sure who said this, but I thought it was brilliant. And that's that. Listen, if you think you're worth more, go negotiate for a higher price. If your current employer says no, go see if someone else will do it. And if no one else will do it, then maybe you're not worth that. If you still think you're worth that, and if you still think you're better than everybody, then go do it yourself.
It's basic economics,
Yes.
right? A product is only worth as much as someone's willing to pay for it. That will still apply to
A wage.
To a wage. You're only worth as much as someone's willing to pay you, and that is going to be determined on what value you're offering. You can't just roll up somewhere saying, "Hey, I deserve to make $100,000." Why? What makes you worth $100,000?
Yeah, if you can bring $200,000 or $150,000 to the business, then that person's whatever they're doing, it's worth it.
Sure.
If they say I can get this infrastructure here, I got these people here.
But you got to be able to prove that though too. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
You have to be able to put that groundwork in and that hustle in and prove your worth also.
Well, the basic thing is you have to come to an agreement with whatever you're doing with anybody. I mean, and again, we go back to this freely. It always comes back to this: people freely engaging with each other economically. So if someone comes into your shop and says, "We can double our everything," but you just got it, and you might say, "Well, I'm not just gonna hire you and do let's start you on a conditional basis. Let's invest here a little bit. Let's see how that
right."
And whatever you guys agree to, let that be the agreement, and then let's see what happens from there. It's all about just freely engaging on mutually beneficial terms.
Well, I mean, with even with the shop, usually everyone that starts at my shop, I start them on a trial basis. So they'll start at a reasonable amount for the first 3 months, and after those 3 months, and after I've seen what they're capable of and that they weren't just blowing smoke up my rear, then all right, now we renegotiate what you're really going to make now.
Yeah.
Because can walk into any interview and say what you want. You can put anything on a piece of paper, right? We went to school with some people who we probably wouldn't let them touch our own car for a damn. You know what I mean?
Fair.
But they graduated. Mm-hmm. They made it through.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't let. Nope. You better don't even look at my car. That's how I would have felt about some of them, you know. Mm-hmm. I expect people to show me what they got before I'll pay them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so crazy because I know, and even much to my discredit, I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at guys like Dr. Wolf and it's always in this academic setting. You know, it's always a speech in a classroom or at some kind of event. It's never talking with someone who actually has the real world experience, and it's so it's so refreshing to kind of because intellectually I've studied this at a very academic level, and I kind of just know it instinctively because I know people who have businesses, and I know I understand that it's not easy. Nothing in life is anytime you think something is easy in life, it's not.
It's probably the hardest thing possible.
Life is just not easy. It's very rare in life that you find these really, this was so easy, unless you have some kind of supernatural talent or proclivity towards something.
Right.
But it's interesting to hear your perspective and to hear that. I think just the reality of it as you see it in the field.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change where I am, mainly because I personally can't see myself working for anybody. I've never enjoyed working for everyone because in my position being the owner, I have the ability to make the decisions that I think are going to be most beneficial for my company. But with that, I take on all the responsibility as well.
Yeah.
So, and I'm okay with that. Some people are not built for that, and that's okay too.
Absolutely.
That's perfectly fine.
Most people are like that.
Right. Most people want to go do their 9 to 5. Yeah. Collect their paycheck at the end of the week. Have the fancy cars or go on the vacations or whatever, and they just have to focus on their job, and that's it, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Mm-hmm. But then you cannot hold it against somebody who is not built that way, who wants to be more in control and more vested in what they're doing.
Yeah. In fact, I think we should put those people on pedestals because those are the people that create the stuff for everybody else. The people you're talking about they're people like me. I'm like someone like that. I mean, I guess I'm trying to change that a little bit about myself, but I like stability. I like the idea of, like you said, a 9 to 5, a guaranteed vacation that I can plan whenever I want, this and that. I like stability, and that's what being an employee kind of is in essence.
Oh, absolutely.
And with an employer, it's not like that. You don't know, there's so much, like you said, you never know what's going to happen. You could have, a couple months or downtimes for seasons and stuff where there's not a lot of work, and what do you do? And for the employees, it's the downtime, no problem. They don't care. They're getting paid. They love it.
I can't. Winter times are our slowest times.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what ends up happening. There's days, especially if there's a projected storm or something like that, where we're sitting in the shop. We'll clean as much as we can, we'll organize as much as we can. There's only so much you can do, though. Mm-hmm. And me, as the owner, I'm sitting there saying, damn, I need something to come in this door because no matter what, my bills are not going to stop.
Yep.
No matter what, I still have to pay this guy that's working here.
Yep.
I can't just close my doors on a whim. Just because I want to, I need a day. I need a personal day. I don't get personal days.
Yeah, that's...
What the hell's a personal day?
Yeah. Personal is when you go to work. That's a personal day.
Yeah.
6 days when you go to work.
That is I have been throwing up, dragging myself out. There was one year I gave myself a concussion, and I went to work.
Oh my God.
My wife, I think, drove me to work. Oh, and she was not happy about that. Because I had to be there. The doors had to open.
Yeah.
I had to give myself the opportunity. If I randomly decide, you know what, I'm not going in today, everybody that I had scheduled, first of all, is going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
They're not going to come back. And anyone that I didn't have scheduled that I might have had an opportunity to service, they're going to go find somebody else who will.
Yeah.
So I have to give myself the opportunities. I've driven in snowstorms where no one's coming out. Nobody. But I got to go clean my lot. No one's going to do it for me.
Oh yeah. Stuff you don't even think about. Yeah, who's gonna plow? Who's gonna,
I've got to get the place ready for business.
Mm-hmm.
Or after storms, I'm waking up at 3:00 in the morning to go
plow. Yeah.
take care of my wife first, my own personal crap.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
To drive through storms at times.
Mm-hmm.
To go to take care of the shop, make sure that by 8:00 it's ready to open. Because sure enough, Susie Homemaker is gonna come with her car still full of snow, expecting me to do an oil change and get a nice cold shower under it because she doesn't take the time to clean off her own snow. That's
Oh man, that's the reality. There is that. I mean, if we're being blunt, being an employer, it kind of sucks sometimes, but it's got to be in you. That's the difference. If it's in you, then you can handle it. But the bottom line is, it does suck.
There's positives and negatives to
sure.
it.
I don't want to pretend it's all negative.
It's not all negative.
We should be fair to it.
It's work. There's work though. A lot of work involved in it. The same, as much risk as there is some of that gain back. I'm not going to say that it's an exact correlation and relationship, but yeah, there's definitely positive sides to it. Once you get to certain levels, though, things don't start off that way. That it's a grind for a lot of people, and for some, a grind that never ends.
And that's the thing that makes me so mad. Is like once you get to maybe like a more comfortable point where it's like you don't have to be in the shop all the time. Maybe you'll just be kind of in sales. Maybe you'll be kind of like just on the phones or when you can finally start letting things kind of run, because now you've managed it to the point where I got the right people in line. It's kind of almost self-sufficient, which is awesome. But just because it's self-sufficient, you still have to monitor it. You still have to make sure, hey, how's everyone doing? Hey, I heard he was sick. How's he doing? Is he working a little slower this week? Hey, like what's going on? Like, and now you got to deal.
Who's stealing from me this week?
Oh God. That's, I don't even know how you deal with that stuff. It's a reality.
That's a reality.
It is. Yeah. No, you're right.
That's a reality. Yeah. It's a juggling act.
I think ultimately, the major difference between the two is one really is a juggling act. Being an employer is kind of a juggling act. Being the employee is kind of like you're watching it. You're a spectator to it. You're like, or a participant in it. Maybe you're like you're not doing like it.
It's a circus.
I don't know how else to say it. It's like it's harder to be an employer than an employee. It just is.
It's a circus. Honestly, it probably sounds crazy, but it's a 3-ring circus, and the owner could be considered the ring master or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. He's the one announcing the acts to come. Mm-hmm. The employees are the individual acts. They have one job. Right? Mm-hmm. The trapeze go out and they do their trapeze thing. The lion tamer goes out, he does his lion tamer thing. He's not worrying about what all the other acts are doing, but the ringleader is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to let everyone know you have your own podcast.
I do.
The Alpha 5.
Alpha 5 podcast.
Tell me about it. How was it created? What topics do you guys talk about? Give me the details.
So, the Alpha 5 podcast was actually an idea that I came up with starting after talking to one of my friends who's also in the pod. We were just speaking very candid with each other and very just open, honest, blunt. That's the kind of person that I am in general. And we were talking about kind of the condition of the world, the PC of the world, and of our communities, and you have to be afraid in today's world almost to say what's legitimately on your mind, because you have to be mindful of not hurting somebody's feelings. So in that moment, I kind of had just the determination to stop that, at least for myself, to give an outlet to say the things that that people are afraid to say, to be blunt. So I ended up contacting a couple other buddies of mine who I thought shared views, but also who I knew had opposing views, right? Because there's always two sides to a topic. You need that, I don't want to say confrontation, but that conflict, both to hear both sides. Mm-hmm. And that within 24 hours, Alpha 5 was born. Just from it was just like light bulb, and I just jumped into it. Mm-hmm. Everybody was on board, and yeah, we basically speak on all the taboo topics. There's nothing that's off limits for us to speak about, and we really go no holds barred. We yell at each other, we curse at each other, we say things in a manner that everybody, I think, to some degree, will think about, but won't say. Mm-hmm. It's real for me. I look forward to it every week. Every week that we record it, just because it's refreshing. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like therapy. it really, honestly, I have no other way to describe it.
You're right. I mean, when I listen, I'm a subscriber. I
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
And yeah, to me, that's exactly what it sounds like to me. It sounds, but even more when I listen to it, it sounds like it's catering to like young men kind of specifically. It's like a dude friendly hangout podcast.
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit more guy focused, because I mean, listen, we're five guys.
Sorry.
So we try to see things from the other perspective. We actually do have a woman only episode out.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Her Story. So we did a 2-part. There was one. Episode 9 actually was called History, and episode 10 was called Her Story. And it's the first History was basically guys take on women and the annoyances that we feel, and her story was the response. And we did that for exactly that reason, just because, yes, we are a little bit more guy focused and wanted to give women a voice. So we thought it'd be an interesting aspect. Our podcast got taken over on that one. It was a good time. Oh,
that's awesome. No, but I like the idea of that. It's basically like a safe haven for like free speech. Whether for good or for bad, people just I want to know what's on your mind. I just want to have a discussion, and like I think exactly like I think that you see. I mean, there's this idea of like, well, no, you can't speak, you can't say these things, you can't have these kind of ideas, you can't engage in these kind of conversations. And it's
right.
Like, why not?
Right.
What's wrong with that?
It's taboo to talk about homosexuality. It's taboo. You can't talk about politics anymore. Mm-hmm. We recently dropped an episode that we talk about mental health. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that people can't say or can't do. I mean, our very first episode was called Stripper Glitter, and part of it was it revolved around whether or not you would go out to a strip club with your significant other.
I gotta say, you guys got that one all wrong.
But that's, I mean, maybe we did, but that's the beauty of it. It's okay not to have the same opinion.
That's what we call a segue to get me on the Alpha 5 podcast.
Listen, we can make this happen.
No, because I know it's like, and like just listening to you guys, it would be like, and the reason I even say that is because it would be, I think, really fun to go on and just have that, like, dude, I think you got this wrong. You said this, like, hey, bro, and just like the back and forth.
Yeah,
like that's fun. I like that stuff.
It is, and when you have the opportunity to just be unfiltered, you can still have tact, but be unfiltered, and it's liberating. People walk around with sensors
on eggshells
all the time, constantly.
Yeah, that's that's the thing. I look back to an interesting note on this topic is that you look at things like the Constitutional Convention, and one of the things you'll note about it is that when they were creating the Constitution, the meetings were secret, and you go, oh, that's kind of weird. Why would they do that? What they wanted was they wanted people to freely express themselves. They didn't want people, because that was one of the first rules they instituted. They were like, listen, you're not allowed to talk about what we do in here. And the reason they did that is because they wanted people to freely speak ideas, because they wanted a wide variety of opinions and ideas they could pick and choose from.
Right.
They didn't want people self-censoring because of, like, oh man, if I say this, he's going to tell his buddies, and like it's going to go to that paper, and then I'm going to be like, they wanted this. They just wanted free speech. They wanted to know what people's opinions were, what good, bad, or ugly. Because who knows? Maybe someone who had a really rough opinion might have been like, "Oh, but you know what? He's actually right when he explains it. Like, oh, maybe that actually has some validity to it.
Right.
It might not sound the best." And they didn't want people being afraid to speak their mind.
Right.
And now that's like the number one thing. Like they're just topics like you said. They're things that we're not allowed to talk about. We're supposed to treat homosexuality like it's this, like, oh my god, like. Especially if you're like a straight dude, forget it,
Well, in today's world, you don't necessarily know who may or may not be homosexual. So, and if you offend somebody, that is like you're immediately turned into a bigot. You're homophobic. You're all these words, all these adjectives that you really aren't, but like you don't necessarily have to agree with certain things. That doesn't mean that you all of a sudden have to be labeled a certain way either.
Yeah, like I think about this, and it's like if you disagree with like same-sex marriage, it doesn't mean you hate gay people,
right?
Like that just right there. Some people can't understand that. They go, well, if you're not for gay marriage, you're against it, so you hate them.
Right.
What do you mean? And it's like no.
It's black and white. There's no middle. Like
it's like you could look at someone and be like, listen, like I don't agree with gay marriage, but like listen, like you as a gay person, not you specifically, but like if I'm talking to someone, it's like no, listen, dude, I love you. Like I want you to find someone that makes you happy. I want you to live like the best life you possibly can. I want you to have a good job. I love all these things about you.
This institution, I believe, should be is between a man and a woman.
Or whatever your disagreement is. If you listen, I don't agree with you. And there's two things that's interesting about the culture of what I call not oppression, of sensitivity, I guess, of being offended.
Right.
One, it's only in one direction. So if I get offended about, let's say I make a statement or something about I don't know, like transgenderism or something. Someone says, "Oh, that offended me because of this," and then if I go, "Well, I'm offended that you have that opinion."
Right.
Notice how it's only in one direction. So
right.
like we have this idea that it's like an offensive culture. It's only in one direction though.
Right.
It's never towards this other. It's never towards the other side. No one could care less. I guess whatever reason. Maybe it's because I'm white or straight or male or American or whatever it is, conservative, right. Which is probably
that's probably the biggest issue. Yeah,
that's the biggest one. But so it's like if I'm offended, no one could care less. I mean, they'd just be like, you're supposed to be offended. You're a terrible person by virtue of who you are.
Right. Yeah, it's again that comes with the labels. I mean, we start our podcast with a saying. For every single episode, it starts off warning you that the podcast you are about to listen to does not care about your emotions, your hypersensitivity, or your political correctness. If you continue past that point, it's on you, and you cannot You legitimately cannot be offended by what you hear. You were warned, and we're not afraid to touch on any topic, just because we're all tired of it.
Yeah, I think most of us are, and I think one of the things we have to be careful of, and I said I had 2 points, but I can't remember the second point. I'm just thinking about, no, I said 2, but then I'm like, I totally forgot the second one. But, to what you were saying, I think a lot of our perceptions we get from like media and, radio and television and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And I think like they're really good at like telling us what like people like, so we get this impression that like, oh, like this PC culture, like this is what people are thinking, like this is what my neighbor's thinking, this is like what the world's thinking right now, and it's like, no, that is what like a boardroom is saying is going on. It's like it's a very small minority of people, like extremely small.
People are sheep now, though,
because most people believe that. They see it on the news, they go, oh my god, everyone must agree with this.
Yep.
And when you talk to real people in real life, it's like, no, it's not the case.
Right.
It's the opposite.
We could be having a conversation where, and it's very often where we agree on a topic. We'll call it abortion. Just to give something horrific out that many people feel very strongly about, right? And really, depending on what side of the what side you're speaking to, if you're opposed to it, the wolves are coming. It doesn't matter. You're not allowed to feel that way, and you'll have that no matter what your opinion is, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice. The wolves will come out, and it shouldn't be like that.
I agree, 100%. This is the reason I started the podcast.
Right.
I wanted to have a platform beyond some of the famous ones where they have all the famous people on.
Right.
Like, you have like Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro's now doing one, Gavin McInnes has stuff. Like, these guys are kind of more famous people. I want to do something. I mean, hopefully if I get to that level, that'd be cool. But I never want to forget, like, I want to just talk to, like, real people in, like, the real world. People who don't know, like, who aren't famous, who are just kind of living in the world.
Well, I mean, like I said, the world shouldn't be like that. We get lost in people get lost in their own opinions. They get lost in their own thought processes and forget that other people have opinions also that they're entitled to have. And the world has become a place where you need to go with the flow. It shouldn't. You take away creativity, you take away individualism, and it's not okay.
Amen. I agree. I remember my second point now, and this ties in well with what you were just saying. So the other idea, we're talking about this oppression culture, where it's like, well, if I'm oppressed, this and that. It's interesting because the oppression comes from a source of disagreement, where it's like, oh, you don't agree with, in this instance we were talking about abortion or gay marriage,
right?
Oh, you don't agree with me. Oh, so we label all these things on you. You're a racist. You're against women's rights and all this insane, not true stuff. And it's interesting that the source of this, as far as I can tell, is that it's an identity crisis. It's that, well, I'm a person, I'm a human being, but I'm also gay. So being gay is the most important thing in my life to me. It's how I self-identify, because I have my best friend, for example, he was very into what they call marijuana. and I was not. I've never tried it, I've never smoked it. It wasn't my thing.
Okay.
And I could sit there and be like, dude, I could say it a million different ways. I could say, I don't like marijuana. I don't agree with marijuana. I don't like that you do marijuana. I think marijuana is evil. I think that you doing marijuana is a bad thing. And he could not care less. He'd go, oh, dude, I'm sorry you feel that way. And as he lit up a blunt or something, like he couldn't care less.
Okay.
Now take that kind of how he would deal with that, and now apply that to like some of the more hot button issues. Why can't people be like, if I were to say, oh, listen, I'm kind of against abortion, people go, well, imagine someone saying, oh, that's cool, dude, I'm actually kind of pro-abortion, like I'm that way, but like, okay, cool, you're pro-life. You never see that.
No.
It's outrage.
It becomes a fight.
You're against gay marriage? Oh my God, you're a hateful, evil, terrible person.
Like, you don't think that they should be able to love each other?
And I just, to me, it's just like, why? And that was the fundamental question I asked. Is like, well, why is it you're okay with me disagreeing with like a part of your lifestyle and you're okay with it here, but not here? And then I think the answer is that, well, it's because you've made it your self-identity to like, oh, I am a gay person. This is what brings me value in my life. And to me, I look at that and I go, no, dude, whether you're pro-abortion or you're a gay person, dude, that is one sliver component of who you are. You are so much more than that. You are so much. I agree. You're a brother, a sister, a father. You're an employee. You have friends. You have like. You have skills and God-given talents and ambitions and dreams and potentials. You're so much more than this like useless, stupid thing that like it's completely inconsequential. It couldn't mean less, and you choose to make that your identity. And it's like that is a shame to me. That to me breaks my heart when people do that.
And I can't agree with you on that. A lot of it though comes from just the combativeness of the world though. Also, like it's just. It's a with me or against me attitude that so many people take, and I just don't understand it. I don't understand where, like I said, where people lost that individualism and that the ability to think for themselves
and the tolerance to handle other dissenting opinions.
People don't have to agree. You just don't have to agree. It's okay. Matter of fact, sometimes it's better because you have better outcomes from conflict and from diversity.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you come to mutually beneficial results for a lot of bad situations. Yeah. You know, there's not always one perfect remedy to something from one side or another.
Yeah, and I think the only agreement that needs to be in place is that we need to have the agreement that we can have different opinions, and those opinions don't come from a hateful
We agree,
source.
We can disagree.
Yeah, essentially, basically. And it's so funny that, like, there is this movement is on the right, as far as I can tell, where, like, that's all they're trying to do now. They're trying to be like, hey, listen, guys, wait, before we even get into, like, the deeper intellectual issues of this and that, let's just, like, start over and be like, hey, I don't agree with you, like, but I don't hate you. I don't like want you dead. I don't think you're an evil person.
Right.
I don't want you murdered by like my radical groups or whatever.
Right.
I just I want to talk with you. I want to discuss the ideas and this and that. And then you just see, at least from my perspective, the more left-leaning media figures and whatnot, they reject sitting down and talking to people on the other side. They reject this tolerance that like, listen, it's okay to have other ideas that aren't mine. They just reject really what I would consider like the unification of people from different aspects of life and different ideologies. They reject all this stuff, and to me, it's just this should never have been a right or left thing. This should have been something that we 100% agreed on all around.
Yeah, it's always touchy, especially when you put a political stance on it, because there's.
I don't like doing it, but the only reason I say it that way is because that's like I said, there's the Ben Shapiro Sunday Special. There's Steven Crowder, who is dying to get people from the left on his show all the time. Gavin McInnes. He has hired an entire company to try to get left people on, and they won't do it. He offers them money. It's funny when he describes it. He says, I'll get someone on the right, and I'll say, hey, do you want to debate someone on the left? They go, yeah, just give me a date and time. Tell me whatever. He goes and contacts people on the left, like, kind of these semi-famous people, like YouTube, blue checkmark people on Twitter, whatever. Right. And they're like, all right, who's it going to be? What's the topic? I don't know. You have to give me a lot of money if I'm going to do it. And then, it's like, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to give you a platform because you're a hate monger. You're spewing hate and homophobia and this and that. And it's like, dude. And it's like, it's a problem getting these kind of... In fact, the most recent example with Gavin, I know... and it's on YouTube now. I can't remember the girl's name, but she did a whole video, and she was like, this guy just tried to get me on his podcast or on his show, and no. And I said no, because and there's all this stuff about why she wouldn't do it, how she doesn't want to give a platform to hate, and how he's trying to, like, because now they've demonized him as being this insane, crazy person, whatever. And now he's trying to normalize himself by getting these people on the show. And he's like, no, I'm not doing any of that. I still believe all that crazy stuff you said, but I'm trying to bring people from the right and left together to have a civil conversation to kind of bring some kind of modicum of unity back.
But the only caveat I think to a lot of stuff though is you need to. People need to be open to discussion and have a level of open-mindedness, right? Mm-hmm. Because right now, right, if opposing sides speak, right, it's almost like it's always a I'm right, you're wrong attitude, I feel like, from both sides. It's not often enough where it's like, all right, what's your point of view? Help me to understand it and see if maybe I see some resemblance of your side, or or maybe even change a point of mind.
Yeah, and that's not like God forbid you change your mind. Yeah, so I've changed my mind about things.
You have to be open minded about things. That's the other side to like acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and until people start going that route as well, we're gonna continue this perpetual cycle of labeling each other on our previous perceptions. Mm-hmm. You can change your mind, you can change your thoughts and gain information. At least you gained information, you understand another side to the argument. Whether or not it even does change your mind, you can gain perspective. See where somebody else is coming from.
Absolutely. And actually, one thing I like to do, I do this in my own life, and I started to do this now if I engage with someone I disagree with. I go, well, for me, I'll ask, am I doing something wrong? Is one of my things incorrect? Like, what could I do to maybe sharpen up an argument? Or maybe, what are the flaws in whatever I'm doing? My thinking, my whatever.
Right.
I'm always self-checking myself. And I found that has made me just a better person, a better debater, I'm better at having conversations and everything.
Right.
But also one thing I do is if I find someone that I just fundamentally disagree with, I'll be like, what is the truth in what they're saying? Like, what is it? And I'm seeking it out. That's the mind frame I have. I'm just like, what is the truth and the good elements about what they're saying here?
It's a matter of perspective, though. I mean, most people are gonna see the truth that they want to see.
And right. I know I have a bias. I'm fully aware of it, and that's how I try to compensate for it. I go, right. I don't agree with this whatsoever, but with what they said, with their words, where's the truth in what they're saying? Like, what's the thing I'm not seeing, and I'm going to seek that out. And I'll tell you, I've gained a lot of insight from doing that, more than I thought I ever would.
So much is based off prejudice, though, and misconception. It's
it's tough.
It's a battle. It's just always a battle. Like, yeah, being willing to receive information that you initially feel you just don't align with. Like, you can hear it, but you're not going to listen to it. Yeah. You're not going to absorb it. You're not going to really take it all in.
Yeah, I want to clarify. Like, I do this. I don't always succeed with it.
Okay,
the effort's always there. Like, I have succeeded.
Try.
I have succeeded with it in the past, and that's how I've gained a lot of good insight from it. But I don't always succeed with it. Obviously, I am a biased person. I mean, I'm very honest about that.
Everybody is. Everyone leans to one way or another.
That's true. And that's the thing. Like what you said. I mean, are you listening to understand, or are you listening to respond?
Right.
There's a difference.
That is fantastic. Absolutely. There's a huge difference between the two.
And I try, and I know I do both. I definitely know I do both. But I think, that's normal. I feel like that's normal. It's not like a horrible thing.
No.
I think I'll push, if I know I can push something, I'll push something. But if I get to a point where all right, you know what, I've exhausted pretty much my knowledge on stuff, let me start taking some stuff in now. Like, I try my hardest to, I will never be offended. If someone, unless they want to murder me or say something derogatory about my wife or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, then you're fighting.
Well, then that's fighting words, but But like, you would have to really work hard to offend me about like, about like a belief I had, like, oh God, you're like, I don't know. It just,
I mean, you're one of the few in that, because the people are very easily and very quickly offended in this world.
It's so sad. I despise. I think we, at large, people who are like that, they're not emotionally or mentally strong. Like, and you need to be in the real world. You have to be.
People have forgotten that you can have respectful conversation where you don't agree.
Yeah. People
have forgotten that. It becomes a question of, are we on the same side? No. Well, now in my head you're already X, Y, and Z. I've already established that we're fighting now.
Yeah. And the thing that kills me the most is I can think of a few friends that I have who are, I mean, we couldn't be farther apart, like on political spectrums and everything. And some of them, not all of them, but some of them, like, I would love to have them on and discuss things, but they physically couldn't, though. They physically couldn't.
Right.
They get so upset,
so
angry, so like, because they can't handle like dissenting like opinions and stuff. And it's like, that to me is such a tragedy, because they're smart people, and it's like, I would love to have them on and we have a fun discussion, and we just say like, hey, listen, like, hey, this is what I think, and they go, no, it's more like this, and I go, hey, like, all right,
but
that's you.
Even if you argue about it, like, that's one of the things on our podcast. There's, like I said, there's 5 of us. We don't all agree. We just don't. We all have, different experiences, different viewpoints, we're at different positions in our lives. So there are times that we get into it, and yes, somebody starts yelling. Mm-hmm. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're still friends. We still respect each other's opinion, regardless of whether we agree or not. And we go about our time. Like, you can even get worked up. You can be passionate about something, and so can the other person, and that's okay. You can still be cool with each other. You can still, be relatable on other topics.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like, I mean, what we see recently with this Mario Lopez thing, where he said like in June or something, I think it was the Candace Owens show, that like, he's like, oh, I don't, I think he said, I just listened to it today. I heard a snippet of it. Him saying that, 3-year-olds, like, it's alarming that 3-year-olds would be transitioning from a different, from whatever biological sex they are.
Oh,
to a different
man, don't get.
And now he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how insensitive and my horrible comments on, or whatever.
Yeah, you're not allowed to
backtrack.
You're not allowed to have an opinion.
And it's
ridiculous.
Oh my God! All I would suggest is that the real thing that's lacking from a lot of society today, I think, is one, tolerance, the idea of that you can physically handle people having different opinions, and then if you can have the tolerance and you can get to step 1, get to step 2 and be like, you know what? I respect that person still. Like, I have a respect for those opinions. I don't agree with them. You might even really not like them, but like, you respect them as an individual. You respect that they have autonomy and can have their own opinions. And you can still like move past that and be like, hey, we don't agree on these issues, but like, yo, come to my house to the barbecue, bring the kids over, like that to me is like what being a human is all about,
right.
Like at its base form. And it's like, it's just so ironic to me that here we are, we're so far advanced in technologies and sciences and all this stuff, and we're really at the stone age of like the human condition. Like we're trying to like reorganize and rethink like what a human being is, when like we have more than 2,000 years of history of like the human condition, like things we're good at, things we're bad at, proclivities that we have, things that we try to avoid, our strengths, our weaknesses. We have a lot of this base knowledge that we're now rejecting, which we're now trying to, I think, come back to. At least some of us are.
Well, I feel like people are embracing, are starting to embrace, go too far. They're getting too invested in things.
I think radicalized is
right. Largely in the this whole sensitivity PC aspect of it. As soon as one person's offended by something, it's like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. I can't believe that. and it like starts this roller coaster, and all of a sudden, like, the opinion becomes like law.
Yeah, it's weird.
and you just can't. It's oversensitivity. It's crazy. It's crazy. Oh, that's what Mario. So he said it's dangerous for parents to support children who identify as transgender.
Remember 3-year-olds. He's talking about 3-year-olds specifically. I remember.
That's. I mean,
the transgender issue to me is. I mean, Lord help us. That's all I know. And the thing is, I've said this previously, and at this point, I stand by it. It's that when you look at where the left is going with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're sexualizing kids now. It's not even a question anymore. With the drag kids, with the whole kids can choose their gender stuff, there's two things happening at the same time. There's parental rights are going down the drain. Let's say one of your kids during one of these areas that support this stuff and there are laws about it,
mm-hmm.
and you go, oh my, little Johnny said he's Joanna today, so you got to start treating her or him like a her. And you go, no, I'm not doing this. This is my son. Da da da. He's 3 years old. Like, kids are ridiculous. They can, in some cases, I think you're going to get that kid taken away from you. I think I don't quote me on it, but I think there are laws out there in some areas that now make it like a crime. If you don't adjust to what the kid believes in, they'll call child services on you. And if it's not here, then it will be here. It's coming.
Parenting is always such a fine line, and it's not only that parents are losing their rights, but they're also sacrificing them willingly. And not just on a law standpoint though, just in their interactions. There's certain things that I can very clearly remember. That had a cause. There was cause and effect. Mm-hmm. There was consequence to certain actions, mm-hmm. and that kind of stuff doesn't exist anymore. You walk around and you see kids cursing at their parents, getting into troubles in school, and
beating up teachers,
not being able to do anything about it. Kids beating up their parents, not just cursing at them.
That's insane.
There's so parents though are sacrificing their power, their control, willingly. Though they're letting that stuff also happen, and then when you get into this whole transgender and acceptance and
spectrum,
how do you associate your growing up, as a boy, I had boy stuff, right? As a girl, my sister had girl stuff. That's just the way it went. That's what you were exposed to. You didn't know any better, right? Mm-hmm. So to ask a 3-year-old, hey, are you a boy or a girl? How do you? You don't know. You just don't know. Now on birth certificates, I think it's male, female, and undetermined now. I think is what appears on birth certificates, and I don't get it. That used to be just about what you were equipped with or weren't equipped with.
Well, in their defense, I'll say that there is some, a very small minority of the population has kind of an abnormal chromosome makeup where it might not be obvious at the beginning. So they have to work with doctors. Like if you have
but that's a special situation.
Exactly.
Though.
But then they use that and they go, listen, there's more than two genders. And you go, what? No, there aren't. And they go, no. Look at these real, kind of, I don't know what you would call them, trans, I don't know what you would even call them, honestly. People who have 3 X chromosomes or 2 X's and a Y chromosome.
You got me.
And what the doctors end up doing is they go, well, listen, we don't really know because you have this abnormal chromosome makeup. So let's see how you develop over time. And your body's going to kind of lean one way or the other. And kind of based on which one is more prevalent, we'll go with that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
But that's based on the research that I've done, and really this comes from Dr. Deborah So. She has her own podcast called Wrong Speak. She's been on Joe Rogan. She's been on Dave Rubin. She's a sex researcher, a sexologist. Some may say.
I like it. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, no, and she talks about this, and it's what we're talking about right now. It's permeated everywhere. She's on the record saying, "Listen, like sex research is a small field. I decided to get into it. I started kind of researching this stuff. So like she knows the science, she knows the data, she knows what the research says.
Right.
And then she goes to publish these papers, and her superiors are like, "Oh, Deborah, don't do that." She goes, "Why not? This is like the truth." He goes, "Oh yeah, no, absolutely, everything's all good here." But you don't understand the political ramifications of what you're doing.
Right.
Like, your career's going to go down the drain here. Like, do you see what's going on? And she goes, "Yeah, but it's like it's the truth. It's the science. Like, are you guys going to like back me up?" And they're like, "No, we have jobs. We don't want to get fired. Like, we like having money, and supporting our families,
fear and all that, man."
Yeah, and that's the reality. I mean, that's academia. That's everywhere in academia. I mean, that's you think the humanities and the social sciences and colleges are very different.
Well, people are gonna learn what they're exposed to, what they're told, what's revealed to them. But
reality is also going to slap them in the face when that stuff doesn't come true. Like you could like
that's when people have panic attacks and freak out because what they thought was real is not, and that's why people get angry like when someone disagrees. It's because they don't know how else to react. They don't know how else to handle it. And that's been the reactions that they've been exposed to themselves, right? It's people are messed up, man. People are messed up, and you need to kind of get back to basics and appreciate your individuality, and not be afraid of it.
I think that is exactly the truth. That is exactly the answer to these things going on, is that you need to be grateful for what you have. You need to be humble. You need to be respectful. You need to have a little humility in your life. Like,
absolutely.
Be honest about like your limitations and shortcomings and fallacies, and just live in the real world for a second. You're not this great superior person who's right about everything.
No.
You are a flawed human being. You're a broken person, And
I mean, everyone's working towards the same goal. At the end of the day, it's understanding.
I think so, yeah.
Understanding and trying to navigate every single day. Yeah,
I agree 100%. I think that most of the people who I would consider like the opposition, they come from a good place. Like they even though I might disagree with them 100%. I might think their ideas lead to like just total catastrophes and just terrible things. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, I understand that person's coming from a good place. They genuinely believe that all these things because they believe it'll actually help people. And it's like, in that sense, we have common ground, because I feel the same way. Like, I actually want to help people. I feel like of course there are, and I think it's exceedingly rare. It's like, it's almost negligible, but there are people that there are out there to do evil. But I don't think that it's even...
Anarchists.
Well, even some of those guys probably genuinely believe anarchy would be better for human society. But I think it's very rare that you'd find someone who would be like, "No, I'm doing this for the purposes of evil because I am evil." Well, like, everyone is doing things because they think it's for a greater good. Ultimately,
wasn't it in the movie, the Dark Knight Rises, the Batman movie, where Alfred goes, some people are just genuinely evil. Some people just like to see the world burn.
I think that's the Joker.
Well, he's talking about the Joker.
Yeah. Is that Rises, or that's Rises is the Bane one? I thought, right? It's Dark Knight Returns, right? I'm getting into semantics now.
No. I mean, one of them. You're right.
I think it's Dark Knight. The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight Returns, isn't that the Bane one?
I thought Rises, because he was broken and then he rose from the... We're going to look it up.
I'm going to have to...
I think it goes Batman Begins, Dark Knight, The Dark Knight, and then The Dark Knight Rises.
It might have been The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight is the Joker. The Dark Knight Rises is Bane.
And it was Dark Knight.
Okay. Yeah, he does say, yeah. Some... There are very few Jokers in the world. I think more people are like Bane, in the sense where Bane is like, no, I am trying to save humanity. We have this cycle, this progression of like stuff happens and people die and then we reset the balance. Like Bane is doing this because he thinks he's doing something good.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's what makes supervillains kind of interesting. When you have someone like that's the difference between like the two Marvel movies, the Infinity War movies. In the first one, you have Thanatos, and he's like, I am trying to save the world from this horrible thing that I suffered. Like, you guys don't understand. Like, when you have overpopulation, this and that.
I witnessed this go down.
Yeah, everyone dies. He's the superhero in his mind, and he has a good argument, kind of. In the second film, you see him go. He kind of. And they cheapened him so much, I think. They ruined it. Because, like, he went from being this kind of virtuous, like, I'm trying to save the world, because then he goes, well, you know what? Now that I saw what happens, I'm just going to kill the entire world. And it's like, well, okay, now you just ruined him, because now no one's going to be on his side. But, like, you could make a decent argument in the first one, where it's like, hey, listen, he's got a point. If, like, it's either half of us go or all of us go.
Yeah.
You know, and that was his experience. So in that case, he was kind of relatable and understandable. Even though I completely disagree with him, just so everyone knows, I'm not for genocide.
I'm not for genocide.
I am against
Are you
genocide.
sure?
Yep, I'm on the record now. I'm against genocide 100%, no matter what.
You're right. It was the Dark Knight.
Okay.
It was the Dark Knight that happened.
Sorry.
I'm pretty sure you were right about it. I don't even remember what I said. That's fine. It's fine.
It was the Joker. That's the main point.
Yes, he was referring to the Joker. But it's a very true statement.
Yes.
Some people just want to see the world burn.
But I think it's very small. It's negligible. I think most people are trying to conduct themselves properly to make the world a better place.
Yes.
Geez, man, hour and a half in already. Feels like 5 minutes.
It flies by because there's really so much. There's a lot to be said.
I know.
There
really is.
It's there's always something to talk about. There's something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I always say, like, there are way bigger things we should be talking about, and here we are. Like, the main point I think of our conversation here is, like, talk to people. Like, hey, like, just because you have disagreements doesn't mean you shouldn't have the conversation. Almost, it's so funny. We're at this base level of human discourse.
It's so easy to look at even just this conversation, right? And we spent an hour and a half so far covering so many different topics, and it makes you wonder how many more conversations you can have with and how many more people you can have them with, and really, like, diversify and expand knowledge and just have good, meaningful conversations that are meant to be out there, as long as you have the right mindset going into them.
Absolutely.
You can cover so much stuff.
And gain a lot of knowledge out of it. I think that's the benefit. Is, like, you have 33 years of experience that I don't have. We might have some overlap, but there's definitely something I can learn from you if I just have an open mind to listen to.
Oh, absolutely. And everyone from each other.
Yeah, I feel like anytime I've had someone on the podcast, like, I've tried to always conduct myself properly in a way that if I can conduct myself properly, I know they'll open up to me and give me their life story, and it gives me all these experiences. I tell this story to people where a guy I used to work with literally saved me, like, a lifetime of knowledge. I was in a place where I was working, and he kind of told me what his experience was like, or what his life was like, because he was in the same field. He's like, listen, and it just, I was on his path, and he told me, like, a story, and he looked back, and I was just like, man, I wish I did it differently. And I just looked at him and go, you just saved me, like, 45 years of experience just by telling me that story.
Right.
Like, just right. And then after that, I started conducting myself differently with how I was doing stuff. And it's like, God, just listen to people, talk to people. They have something to tell you. You can learn something.
Everybody has a story. Even
if you disagree with them. If I had Hillary Clinton in this room right now, she would tell me something that would be valuable to me. And I can't think of another person that is just diametrically opposed, like that. That I just
opposite of you.
Yeah, beyond opposite, like something beyond it. But, like, I know enough. I'm humble enough to say that I bet she could tell me something that I didn't know that could make me a better person.
It's out there. It's out there from everyone. You have to be willing to take it in, though, and that's the difference.
Yeah, if she wanted to come on the podcast, I would totally invite her on.
I mean, you'd be crazy not to.
I know. I mean, God, I get so many followers then. I'd probably also get like a ton of death threats too, but you never know.
It's all right. Listen, that's the good with the bad. You see,
you got to take it.
That's being an owner right there, Steve. Just saying.
You got to take the good with the bad. You got to. I wouldn't enjoy it, but I guess it comes with the territory. Well, all right, man. I think that's a good place to cut it off. But we should definitely do this again sometime. I had a lot of fun. 100%. I had a lot of fun.
You know, man.
And good luck with your podcast and everything.
I appreciate that.
How's it doing? Is it doing? What are the stats like?
I mean, little by little we're growing.
Good, man.
Little by little we're growing. It's a job. It's another job.
It is.
You know, but we enjoy doing it. Reaching out. We're trying to have those conversations that people are afraid to have. You know, we're trying to put opinions out there that people are afraid to share, so that you realize that you're not alone in your thought process with one of us, multiple of us, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
So,
no, I love what you're doing, and anything I can do to help promote you guys, just let me know.
We're gonna try and get you on. It's a little bit farther for you though.
It's fine.
All right, listen,
dude. This is kind of like, this is kind of my job right now, so it's a work expense.
I get it. So everyone's gonna have to keep an eye out for that. Steve on the Alpha 5 podcast.
Alpha 5 plus 1.
There you go. There you go.
Looking forward to it, man. All right. Till next time.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.